Symphonia of Sword and Sorcery, a legendary romance action RPG centered around a hero and his group of heroines aiming to defeat the Demon King. Set in the Royal Academy of the Kingdom of Clarnal, it's a world I've played through countless times. For some reason, I've been reincarnated right into it. My name is Lest Albion. I'm a villainous noble destined to die halfway through the story. At this rate, I'm definitely a goner. Everything started a few days ago during the Divine Oracle Ceremony, a special ritual where 14-year-olds receive a skill from the goddess. The skill I was granted was Tame. The crowd couldn't believe it, a garbage skill that only controls horses and pigeons. My father, Gad Albion, was furious that a non-combat skill would come from a bloodline of elite swordsmen. My twin brothers, Edward and Sid Ward, just laughed at how pitiful I was. That's when I remembered everything. I'm a character in the game I used to play, but I'm in the villain's role, destined to be killed by the Demon King's army. In the game, Tame is a worthless skill for controlling livestock. But as a hardcore player who cleared every route, I know the truth about less unique ability. It can even control monsters. In the original story, the real Les didn't realize this until years of persecution had already twisted his heart, leading him to use it for evil. That power eventually made him a target for the Demon King's army. If I follow the script, I'll die. To survive, I have to find a way to crush that death flag. There's only one answer. I'll use my knowledge of the game to become strong enough to take over a country with one hand. There's exactly 1 year left until the main story begins. Time to get to work. I have a mountain of things to do if I want to survive. I'm currently at dinner with my family, and the tension is high. Gad Albion is counting on the twins for today's training report, while the first wife mocks me for having a trash skill. Edward and Sid Ward are all fired up to show off. Edward suggests I should have been born into a family of livestock handlers or coachmen. Gad doesn't even want to hear a word from me. The twins keep at it, suggesting I find a dog to tame while they head off to their elite sword training. I just excuse myself and leave. A week has passed since my memories returned. I've been out in the woods alone, piecing things together. I can't check my stats, but the level-up system definitely exists here. The basic rule is that I can only tame monsters I personally defeat. To control the heavy hitters, I need to boost my stats through an old game exploit called midnight training. In the game, you could only choose one of 5 training types per day. But in this world, I'm not limited to just one session. I could do every single one daily. Next up is magic refinement. My physical stats are already way above average compared to my past life, and the refinement session goes surprisingly smooth. In the game, Les was always a lazy slacker. Seeing how hard he actually worked before the despair set, it makes me realize just how much he must have struggled. I decide to save the final training for later and head back to the estate, but my brothers are already waiting for me. They mock me for not having a dog yet. Sid Ward reminds me that having no sword skill means I have no right to attend their training. These twins are as hopeless as always. Suddenly, a massive pressure hits the area. A woman with long blonde hair shouts that they're going hard again today. The sheer intensity she radiates is overwhelming. She drags a massive, bleeding earth dragon behind her like it's nothing, casually mentioning she took it down on the way. My brothers are absolutely terrified. This is Elna Lubrizle. She's only 18, but she's already an S-rank adventurer and a genius swordswoman. She's the one training my brothers. Elna never appeared in the original game. Seeing her power up close is seriously overwhelming. I can't help but wish I could be trained by someone like her. 2 hours later, at the Albion family's training hall, Elna is putting the twins through the ringer. She asks them what's wrong as they struggle to keep up. I watch from the shadows, amazed. Even with sword-type skills, they're getting treated like toddlers by her. She demands they get back up. Finally, the session ends. The twins are completely spent. I know I can raise my stats through solo training, but there's a limit to how far that will take me. I can't afford to waste this chance. Elna only visits the estate once a month. To learn real combat skills, I need her guidance. I can't let this opportunity slip by. She notices me watching and asks if I need something. I step out from my hiding spot, my heart racing as she looks right at me. I introduce myself, as Lest Albion. She's already heard about me, the one who was granted the Tame skill. I don't let it faze me and look her in the eye. I get straight to the point and beg her to teach me how to fight with a sword. I tell her clearly that I want to get stronger. Elna is skeptical. Tame isn't a combat skill, and she doesn't think I could survive her regimen without a sword-type skill. But I don't back down. I insist that I still want to learn. She kicks a wooden sword toward me, challenging me to prove I'm worth training. I catch it, ready for whatever comes next. This is my chance. She charges instantly. She's so fast I can barely track her movements. I barely manage to bring my sword up in time. Our swords clash with a heavy thud. She tells me to prove my resolve with my own hands. Her speed is frightening, and every strike feels like a ton of bricks. She's on a completely different level. Even while holding back, one slip in my guard, and I'll black out in an instant. I'm pushed to the absolute limit. She shouts at me to get up and not fall apart. I focus everything I have on figuring out just one thing from this exchange, refusing to give in. I have no idea how long it's been, but my legs finally give out. I collapse onto the stone ground, gasping for air. I can't even hold myself up anymore. She tells me it wasn't even close. My physical ability barely meets the minimum, and I'm a total beginner in swordsmanship. Then she asks me the real question. Why do I seek power? Elna stares him down. She wants to know if he's doing this to surpass his brothers, or if there's some other reason behind it. Les doesn't hesitate. He shouts that he wants to win against fate itself. The intensity in his voice catches her off guard. She gives in. 30 minutes of instruction every time she finishes training the twins. It's not much, but to Les it's everything. Elna lets him keep the wooden sword as a parting gift. She won't be back for another month, so it's up to him to train as much as possible until then. 2 months later, Les is still at it. He's deep into his training with Elna, and the intensity has only ramped up since they started. They clash in the training hall, the wooden swords echoing through the room. Elna keeps pushing him, mocking his predictable movements. She tells him he's getting easier to read. She orders him to go for a thrust next, giving him zero room to catch his breath. The exchange is a blur of movement. Les is trying to keep up with an S-rank adventurer, and he's barely hanging on by a thread. He tries a feint, but Elna hops back effortlessly. She calls it a mistake to back off without following through, though Les is already planning his next move. Les knows that in this world, techniques are just as essential as skills, maybe even more. They're what let a fighter exceed their own physical limits. He's managed to learn one of the finishing moves from the game. He readies his stance, gripping the wooden hilt with everything he's got. It's a single strike move that massively boosts sword speed and power. Blade surge, full drive. The air around him seems to hum with energy. He activates flash step, launching himself forward like a bullet. The speed is unlike anything he's shown before. Elna's eyes widen in genuine shock. She wasn't expecting him to pull off a move of that caliber. It catches her completely off guard. The wooden sword misses her by a hair. Elna admits that was close, but Les is frustrated that he still couldn't land a solid hit. Les is collapsed on the ground, sweat dripping from his face. After 2 months of blood, sweat, and tears, the gap between them still feels like an ocean. Elna is internally reeling. Flash Step was designed specifically for sword skill users. For someone without a combat class to pull it off in just 2 months is insane. It should have taken a year minimum. She tells him to keep it up, and Les just nods. He's pushing himself harder than anyone realizes. Maybe he can actually do this. He's raising himself to be a total monster. He won't let his trash skill define what he's capable of in this new life. I'm Lest Albion, a villainous noble who's supposed to die halfway through the story. It's a role I never asked for, but one I'm stuck with. But I've decided to use my knowledge of the game to avoid that fate. Aiming for the top is the only way I'm going to make it out alive. A month and a half has passed since then. Thanks to having a world-class mentor, my power has been growing at an incredible rate. Every session leaves me stronger. Up to this point, everything has gone smoothly. As long as I stay away from the main characters who are supposed to become my enemies, I should be fine. But then my father drops a bombshell. Charlotte, the second princess, is coming to visit our estate. My heart nearly stops at the news. Charlotte von Finale. She's one of the main heroines in Symphony of Sword and Magic. Hearing her name makes me break out in a cold sweat. To me, she's a walking death flag. She's the last person in this world I want to be around right now. My past life's knowledge is screaming at me to run. If I had to describe her in one phrase, she's the perfect princess. Everyone loves her, and for good reason. She's everything a royal should be. She's pure-hearted, kind, and quick to befriend anyone. Despite her extraordinary talent, she trains harder than anyone to protect her people. She's basically a living saint. And because she's that kind of person, she couldn't forgive the original Lest's actions. She was the one who stood against him when he went off the rails. In the game, she confronts the rampaging Lest alongside the protagonist. She's the literal hero to my villain. This visit is the last thing I need. According to the lore, there shouldn't have been any connection between Lest and Charlotte this early. I can't figure out why this is happening now. Something is off. My father explains that Elna is also the royal family sword instructor. Apparently, Charlotte heard from her about a talented young swordsman in the Albion family and wants to meet him. The twins are ecstatic, thinking the princess is actually interested in them. I can't believe Elna and Charlotte were connected like this. It makes too much sense. It's clear now. The reason the game's scenario changed is because I got involved with Elna. My own actions are starting to ripple through the world. If Elna mentioned a young swordsman she's interested in, it's almost certainly me. The twins think she was bragging about them behind their backs, but I know better. There's no way she meant these two. 2 weeks later, the day of the visit arrives. The estate is buzzing with activity. Everyone is on their best behavior for the royal guest. At last, the day is here. If possible, I'd rather stay as far away from her as I can. Dealing with someone I have such a dark history with in the game is the last thing I want. The twins barge in and ask what I'm doing. They order me to get out of the castle, telling me I'm in no position to meet the princess and would only be a distraction. I just nod and agree to leave. It's the perfect out. They think they're insulting me, but they just gave me exactly what I wanted. Nice assist, guys. Now I just need to figure out how to pass the time until she's gone. It's about time I test my skills against some actual monsters anyway. This is as good a chance as any. I head toward the Arst forest, a known monster habitat on our territory. It's usually off limits until you enroll in the Royal Academy, but I'm not exactly a rule follower anymore. Standing out too much right now would be a hassle, so I'll just pass on the royal meeting. Time to put my Tame skill to use and get some real subordinates. Princess Charlotte von Finale has arrived at the Albion estate. Her presence seems to brighten the room, her aura radiant and calm as she accepts the family's hospitality. Gad Albion welcomes her warmly, noting that she was recently granted the prestigious Holy Sword Princess skill. It's a mark of her incredible potential and a point of pride for the royal family. The twin brothers, Edward and Sid Ward, are awestruck. They know that her skill is legendary, boosting both magical and physical prowess beyond almost any other known skill. Charlotte politely asks if she could observe their training session. Gad immediately orders his sons to escort Her Highness to the training grounds. The twins are more than happy to oblige, seeing this as their chance to impress the princess. The sparring begins. Edward and Sid Ward put on a dramatic display, shouting and clashing their blades with as much flair as they can muster to show off their power. Watching from the sidelines is Charlotte and her personal maid, Estella. Estella, a capable warrior who always stays by the princess's side, remains silent while Charlotte quietly critiques their performance. To her, there's nothing particularly impressive about their level of skill. The twins notice Charlotte's lack of reaction. Panicking, they realize a simple mock battle isn't going to be enough to win her over or demonstrate their superiority. They quickly pivot, suggesting that they demonstrate their true strength through real combat by hunting monsters in the nearby Arst forest. They hope the change of setting will make them look more heroic. They boast that the forest is practically their own backyard, promising to protect her from any danger. In reality, they've never actually set foot inside, but they're desperate to fulfill their father's orders and gain her favor at any cost. Charlotte agrees to the proposal, curious to see how the brothers handle themselves in a real fight instead of just a controlled spar. As they enter the Arst forest, the atmosphere shifts dramatically. The thick canopy blocks out the sun, leaving the area in an eerie, perpetual twilight that puts everyone on edge. The twins try to maintain their bravado, telling Charlotte not to worry. Meanwhile, Charlotte starts to wonder about the other Albion son she'd heard about, the one who's supposedly in the same grade as her, but is nowhere to be seen. When she asks about Lest, the twins are quick to dismiss him with a sneer. They mockingly claim he stepped away because he knew he wasn't worthy of her time, laughing about his supposedly useless Tame skill. Their laughter is cut short by a low, menacing growl from the undergrowth. Estella is the first to react, her hand immediately moving toward her weapon as she senses immediate danger. A pack of errant gray wolves emerges from the shadows, eyes glowing with hunger. Despite their low rank, the sight of actual monsters sends a wave of fear through the unprepared and overconfident brothers. The twins charge in, their movements frantic and uncoordinated as they shout for a coordinated strike. They manage to land several blows on the wolves, but it's clear their way out of their depth in a real life-or-death struggle. The fight is over quickly, but Edward and Sid Ward are left gasping for air and trembling. They're completely exhausted from facing just 3 low-level monsters, their earlier boasting completely forgotten in the harsh reality of combat. Estella senses the wind shifting and tells the princess they need to leave right now. Edward and Sid Ward aren't worried, bragging about how they'll cut down any monster that dares to show up. A sudden roar shatters the confidence of the group. Out from the trees steps a massive C-rank gale wolf. The siblings freeze, realizing they've stumbled into something far beyond their level. The beast lunges, immediately overpowering the twins. Estella orders the brothers to take Charlotte and run while she holds the line. They take off into the woods, but the forest isn't making it easy to escape. The wolf is right on their heels. Just as they think they're safe, a second wolf, even bigger than the first, blocks their path. The twins start to panic, realizing there's no way they can win this. Edward tries to strike, but his sword just bounces off the monster's hide. Charlotte is left wide open as the boys are pushed aside. The Gale Wolf lunges for the kill. She braces for the worst, hoping her guard can reach her in time. Realizing the beast is using wind magic, Charlotte tries to muster a holy spell. She's too slow to finish the chant. A shadow suddenly drops in, blocking the wolf's strike. A young guy stands firmly between the princess and certain death. Charlotte looks up, completely stunned by the sudden rescue. Les keeps it casual, telling her he's just an ordinary person passing by. A few minutes earlier, Les had spotted them from a distance. He realized they were heading straight into the forbidden Alst forest. He figured the twins were just trying to show off for Charlotte and would get everyone killed. If the princess dies on his family's land, his whole lineage is getting executed. He decided he had to follow them, just to be safe. Turns out his premonition was spot on. Les takes a breath, relieved he managed to stop a major death flag for his family. He doesn't want to blow his cover, so he pretends he's just a random commoner. Charlotte is confused. There's no way a commoner could have that kind of presence. Les tells him to stay back, so he can handle the monster. He knows the odds are technically against him, but he's got game knowledge to exploit. He closes the gap in an instant. He weaves through the wolf's attacks with surgical precision. The monster is a powerhouse at any range, but Lest is reading it like a book. Since he knows all its attack patterns, he lands a heavy blow right on its snout. Charlotte watches in awe, unable to believe what she's seeing. Even with her elite training, she can't match the physical ability he's showing. It brings back memories of her training sessions with Elna. She remembers how hard she worked because she refused to lose to anyone. Elna had warned her that her rivals wouldn't just be people with high-grade skills. She spoke of those who reached the top through sheer effort, and Charlotte realizes she's looking at one of them. In a flashback, Elna tells Charlotte about a boy from the Albion family who's the same age as her. Estella notes she's never seen Lady Elna speak so excitedly about anyone before. Elna suggests they meet sometime, thinking he'd be a great source of motivation for Charlotte. Back in the present, Charlotte stares at the boy who just saved her, realizing this must be Lest Albion. She's heard rumors about him being granted a useless tame skill, yet here he is showing incredible strength. Seeing his skill firsthand, she realizes Lady Elna wasn't exaggerating about him. The fight isn't over yet. The Garl Wolf is still standing, and Lest is starting to feel the strain. He's burnt through most of his mana using magic early on, and is nearly running on empty. Knowing he only has one shot left, he prepares to press the attack as the beast lunges. As the wolf snaps at him, Lest jams his wooden sword right into its jaws to hold it back. The beast thrashes wildly, but Lest refuses to let go. With a final surge of effort, he prepares to deliver a finishing blow. He uses a high-speed technique, moving like a flash of light. The impact sends the massive wolf crashing into the ground with a deafening thud. Lest stands over the downed beast, catching his breath as the dust settles. Charlotte can only watch in silence, completely floored by the display of power. She rushes over to congratulate him, but Lest remains focused, knowing the real work is just starting. For someone with his unique skill, defeating the monster is only the first step. Charlotte thanks him from the bottom of her heart, deeply impressed by his courage. She introduces herself as Princess Charlotte and notices he carries the same type of training sword she received from Elna. Lest plays it off, claiming he only saved her because he didn't want his family to face execution for her safety. Charlotte gives him a bright, grateful smile that catches him off guard. He's surprised to realize she actually knows his name. Wanting to change the subject, he asks the princess to look after his brothers while he goes to check on the wolf. He approaches the beast, which is still groaning on the ground. A system message pops up, informing him that the Garl Wolf is interested in serving the one who defeated it. This is exactly what he was hoping for, his first chance to use his skill on a real monster. He looks the predator in the eye, sensing its submission. He commands the beast to become his first servant. The taming is a success, and he immediately feels a surge of new power as he acquires wind magic. On top of the magic, he's granted an extra-dimensional space to house his new subordinate. He realizes his skill is even more broken than he thought. It lets him absorb the literal strength of his pets. Now, all the wind-based abilities that almost killed him are officially his to command. He knows the original Lest in the game failed by getting cocky, so he vows to never stop training. With this kind of potential, he's more determined than ever to reach the top. Looking at his new pet, he decides its species name is way too long to keep saying. He gives it a proper name, Garl, and the wolf seems to take a liking to it. Since he's not ready to reveal his true power to the world, he needs to keep the wolf hidden for now. He activates his new skill to send Garl into the extra-dimensional residence. The wolf disappears into a portal, leaving no trace behind. Just then, Estella finally arrives, frantically checking to make sure the princess hasn't been hurt. Charlotte explains that another wolf appeared, but they managed to drive it off, while his brothers lie defeated in the background. Charlotte enthusiastically points out that Lest is the one who came to her rescue. Estella is skeptical, wondering how a boy with a useless skill could have defeated such a high-rank monster so quickly. Lest notices the maid's confusion, finding it amusing that her professional mask is slipping so easily. Charlotte beams at him, her gratitude practically sparkling in the afternoon light. Lest modestly admits he managed to drive the wolf away, though he emphasizes the danger of the battle. The atmosphere grows tense when Lest addresses Estella by name, causing her to wonder how he knows her identity. Charlotte quickly chimes in, assuming he simply overheard her calling out to Estella earlier. Estella takes the bait and offers a formal bow, thanking him for protecting the princess. Lest realizes he needs to be much more careful about using his future knowledge around people from the game. With everyone accounted for, Estella hauls the unconscious twins onto her shoulders and leads the group out of the forest. Lest rolls up carrying his unconscious brothers like sacks of potatoes, and naturally, his father Gad is losing his mind. Inside, the house is in total chaos. Gad demands to know what on earth happened while Lest just stands there, taking the heat. Gad is fuming, pointing a finger and demanding an explanation he can actually believe. He can't wrap his head around how Lest is the only one without a scratch. Before Lest has to say a word, Princess Charlotte jumps in. She makes it clear that he hasn't done anything wrong. In fact, he's the one who saved her life. Estella steps up to explain that it was the twins, Edward and Sid Ward, who led them into Alst Forest, claiming they went there all the time. That didn't end well. Gad is stunned that his boys went into such a dangerous forest alone. He tries to save face by saying he never gave them permission. Estella isn't letting him off that easy. She reminds him that as the head of the house, the responsibility for their reckless behavior falls squarely on him. Charlotte tries to play peacemaker, admitting they shouldn't have just taken the twins' word for it. Then she drops the bombshell. Lest defeated a sea-ring Garlwolf all by himself. She smiles, telling them she wants the whole matter dropped as a thank you for Lest saving her life. Lest just keeps his usual poker face. Gad is staring at Lest in total disbelief. Charlotte politely asks to be shown to her room so she can rest up. Before she leaves, Charlotte turns back to Lest and tells him she wants to greet him properly later. Gad is still processing the news, looking like he's seen a ghost. Lest watches them walk away, while his father is stuck in a loop, muttering about how impossible it is for his worthless son to have pulled that off. Gad is absolutely seething. He just can't stomach the idea of Lest being the hero of the day. Lest isn't exactly bothered by his father's attitude. He's got his own things to worry about. Later that night, the mansion is quiet, but Lest is wide awake. He heads out to the balcony, thinking about squeezing in some late-night training since he can't sleep. Suddenly, someone calls out his name. He turns around and is surprised to find the princess standing right there. Charlotte, holding a small lantern, asks if he'd mind chatting for a little while. Lest agrees, keeping it polite. They stand together under the stars, and Charlotte thanks him again. She knows she might not have made it back if he hadn't rushed in. Lest tells her not to worry about it, saying he's just glad she's safe. She looks at him with a soft expression, clearly moved by his kindness. She's genuinely impressed by him, wondering if he was able to get such a skill because of the kind of person he is. To her, his swordsmanship was nothing short of amazing. Lest tries to downplay it, suggesting she probably weakened the monster before he even got there. He's not one for taking extra credit. Charlotte just giggles and says the whole experience was a wake-up call for how much she still has to learn. She's staring off into the distance, deep in thought. She turns back to him, her gaze much more determined now. She tells him she's made a decision based on what happened today. Lest looks at her, realizing the atmosphere is getting a little too intense for his liking. He starts sweating, thinking she's about to drop a romantic confession right then and there. He wasn't prepared for this level of drama. Instead, she leans forward and asks him to become her sword friend. Not exactly what he was expecting. Lest is visibly confused, so she explains. She wants a rival, someone she can compete with and strive alongside. Charlotte admits that her mentor Elna is just way too strong for her to catch up to right now. But Lest? He's the same age and feels like he's just one step ahead. She's convinced that having a friendly competition with someone like him will help her grow much faster. She's really pushing for this. Lest isn't thrilled about getting tangled up with main characters, but since she's so persistent, he agrees. He figures it might be useful later. Charlotte is absolutely thrilled. She beams at him, clearly happy to have a new training partner. She tells him to drop the formalities and just call her Charo. Lest tries to argue that their social standings are too different, but she's not having any of it. Seeing she won't take no for an answer, Lest gives in and calls her Charo. She looks like she's won a major victory. They end the night on the balcony, both looking forward to whatever sword friend activities they'll be doing in the future. The next morning, Charo is ready to head back to the capital. She waves goodbye to Lest, already excited about their future rivalry. Lest and Gad see her off at the carriage. Lest keeps it formal, while Gad is bowing low, probably just glad the ordeal is over. It's the start of an unlikely alliance. The worthless noble and the princess are now officially rivals. As the carriage rolls away, Gad's face twists into a scowl. He's still incredibly bitter that Lest was the one she took an interest in. He immediately starts screaming at Edward and Sidward. He's furious that their stupidity almost ruined the family's reputation. Their mother tries to stand up for them, claiming they were just trying to follow orders and make a good impression. Gad isn't listening. Gad points right at Lest, demanding to know how the twins are going to take responsibility for the princess getting interested in his worthless son. Lest just watches the family drama unfold with a deadpan look, not really understanding what responsibility he's supposed to be worried about. Edward and Sid Ward are straight up lying to their father, Gad Albion, claiming they did all the heavy lifting and Les just stole the final kill. Gad is all too happy to believe his worthless son is a fraud. Les just stands there with a deadpan look while the twins double down, insisting he took advantage of the chaos to trick the princess. They're really laying it on thick. Gad is convinced. He tells himself it all makes sense now. There's no way a failure like Les could actually be strong. He's ready to bring the hammer down. Lest is internally rolling his eyes, calling his brothers absolute idiots. He remembers how pathetic their stances were in the forest and knows they didn't land a single real hit. Gad goes into full rage mode, screaming at Les to know his place. Les doesn't flinch, calmly stating that he's the one telling the truth. Les tells his father point blank that he defeated the monster. Gad just sneers and challenges him to prove it right then and there. The solution? A duel. Gad orders Les to fight both of his brothers at the same time. If he's as strong as he claims, this should be easy, right? Gad is sure this will expose Les' lies. Les looks at him, realizing exactly what kind of trap his father is trying to set. The twins think this is a splendid idea. They're totally okay with a 2-on-1 fight if it means they get to humiliate their brother publicly. Les analyzes his brothers. Individually, they aren't pushovers, and normally, a handicap match like this would be unwinnable. But that was the old Lest. With Geralt tamed and his stats through the roof, the logic of the past just doesn't apply anymore. Lest accepts the challenge with a confident smirk. He's more than ready to show them how far behind they really are. The duel is officially on. Lest looks calm as ever, while the twins are already getting into their fighting stances. They move to the courtyard to settle this. The twins are looking smug, but less confidence is starting to make them a little nervous. Suddenly, a voice rings out across the grounds. Elna Lubrizle appears, announcing that she'll be the one to witness this duel. Edward and Sidward are stunned to see their master showing up out of nowhere. They definitely weren't expecting an audience this high profile. Gad is equally surprised. Elna explains that she got a message about her students being attacked and had to come see the fallout for herself. She apologizes for the intrusion, but she isn't leaving. She's curious about these rumors and wants to see exactly how this duel plays out. Gad tries to tell her it's a family matter, but Elna insists it's only right for her to act as the witness since her students are involved. Then she drops a huge secret. She's been giving Les private lessons on the side. Gad and the twins look like their brains just short-circuited. Gad is in total denial. He refuses to believe Les could ever stand a chance against his two prodigy sons, even with Elna's help. Elna stares at Les, trying to read him. She wants to see if he's actually got the skill to back up all that confidence. Gad eventually shuts up and welcomes her as the witness. Les admits to himself that a month ago, he wouldn't have lasted 5 seconds. But things are different now. Les knows he has to show off just enough to satisfy Elna without giving away his biggest secrets. Elna gives the signal, telling Les to prove his worth and show her the truth behind his claims. Les gives her a sharp nod. He's ready to stop playing nice and start winning. The setup is totally unfair. The twins have real combat gear, while Les is just holding a wooden training sword his master gave him. Edward and Sidward are looking real confident with their steel blades, ready to make quick work of their brother. Gad keeps barking from the sidelines. Meanwhile, Les is focusing on his new powers, enhanced physical ability, and wind magic. Les decides to keep his wind magic hidden for now. He's got another trick up his sleeve that doesn't involve flashy spells. Elna yells for the duel to begin. The twins charge and instantly, screaming insults at the weak punk they think they're about to crush. One twin dashes forward for a quick strike, but he's shocked when Les reacts faster than him, easily dodging the blade. He's frustrated that all his attacks are being blocked. He decides to put everything into one massive swing to end this. Panel underscore number 33, row underscore D. The twin scoffs, asking Les if he really thinks a wooden stick can stop a steel greatsword. He swings down with everything he's got. A massive clang rings out as would meet steel. The twin is horrified. How did that toy not snap? Les just smirks and drops the name of his technique, Ma-Fill. Les explains that Ma-Fill channels mana into the microscopic gaps of an object, turning even a wooden stick into something nearly indestructible. He tells his brother he'd never understand because he only knows how to swing a sword around blindly. The twin is absolutely seething now. In the game, this was a high-level skill requiring insane mana control. Luckily for Les, he's been training his mana refinement every single day. Now that he's tamed Geralt, his mana capacity is huge, making this advanced technique child's play. The twins are officially in trouble. The brother is struggling just to push back, sweating as he realizes his steel blade is being matched by a piece of wood. It's a total nightmare. Les lets out a shout and goes on the offensive. He's using body reinforcement to boost his strength, leaving his brothers in the dust in every category. Edward and Sid Ward are starting to sweat. They can't understand how Les suddenly has so much power when he was supposed to be a total failure. Les stands tall, wooden sword in hand. Now, he says with a predatory grin, it's my turn. He doesn't waste a second, lunging forward to meet their combined assault head-on. The twins scream that it's their turn to win, but the look in Les's eyes says otherwise. Metal clashes against wood with a loud crack. Les parries their blows with surgical precision, forcing them onto the defensive. He's moving like a blur, slipping between their attacks and landing glancing blows that rattle their teeth. One of the twins screams at him not to look away, desperate to land a single solid hit as Les continues to dominate the pace of the fight. Les easily ducks under a wide swing, mocking their sloppy form. He tells them their hips are way too high, critiquing them like a teacher mid-battle. He isn't even breaking a sweat. What's wrong? He asks, his smirk widening. We've only just begun. Gad is watching from the sidelines, his jaw practically on the floor. He can't wrap his head around how a tamer is outclassing two trained swordsmen. Elna watches in silence. She knew he was improving, but his growth rate over the last month has been absolutely abnormal, almost beyond belief. Les isn't letting his guard down yet. He knows the twins still haven't used their trump cards, and he can sense their desperation mounting. Elna reflects on the nature of skills, powers so terrifying they can overturn years of hard work in a single heartbeat. If you can't overcome that gap, you'll never advance. Les decides it's time to end this. He needs a victory so decisive that no one can complain or claim he cheated this time. The twins take a deep breath, synchronizing their mana for one final, all-out attack. They're putting everything they have left into this next move. Les feels the atmosphere shift. He knows the real fight starts right now. The twins roar as they activate their skills simultaneously, crushing avalanche and dance of acceleration. It's a pincer attack designed to crush him. Les realizes they've been hiding custom skills tailored to their specific weapons. He can't match their combined power and speed with just raw stats. Fine. Les thinks, his eyes narrowing. He didn't want to show his hand this early, but if he wants to win without a scratch, he has to play a skill of his own. Les drops into a low stance, holding his wooden sword back. My exclusive skill, he whispers, focusing his mana into the blade. He activates his wind magic, wrapping a high-frequency, vibrating layer of air around the wood. It creates a cutting edge sharper than any steel. He gives the technique its name, Tenso Kazutachi. With a single explosive burst of speed, he charges directly through the twins' coordinated attack. Everything happens in the blink of an eye. A single silver flash cuts through the courtyard, followed by a sudden, heavy silence. The twins freeze mid-swing, staring in horror as their steel blades are sheared clean through by a wooden stick. The broken pieces of their swords clatter to the ground. The reality of their defeat is literally lying at their feet. Gad and his wife are speechless. The idea of a wooden sword cutting through forged steel is scientifically impossible, yet they just saw it with their own eyes. Edward and Sidward collapse to their knees, completely broken. They can't even process the level of defeat they just experienced. Les stands over them, his voice cold. Still want to go? Before things can get uglier, Elna steps forward, declaring the fight over. She officially declares Les the winner. He clenches his fist, a satisfied smile finally crossing his face. Elna reiterates her judgment. Les has proven his strength beyond any doubt, leaving the twins to wallow in their shame. The twins' mother is having a total meltdown, unable to accept that the concubine's child humiliated her perfect sons. She stumbles, and Elna has to catch her. Elna looks toward Gad Albion, asking if he can finally accept the outcome. The pressure she exerts is palpable. Gad looks like he swallowed a lemon, but he has no choice. Under the watchful eye of an S-rank adventurer, he grinds out an acknowledgement of Les' victory. The twins follow their father away from the courtyard, defeated and disgraced. Les watches them go, finally feeling the weight of the Albion name lift slightly. Elna turns to Les with a soft look. She admits she was genuinely surprised by the result, but Les is just glad he didn't embarrass her as her student. She laughs, hoping this beating will finally motivate the twins to actually train instead of just relying on their names. Les starts to feel a bit nervous. He tried to keep his use of wind magic subtle, but he has a feeling Elna saw right through his trick. Sure enough, she says she has a few questions about that final strike, specifically why he hesitated for a split second before destroying their weapons. Les explains himself, admitting that he was considering other ways to subdue them without resorting to Tenso Kazutachi. He could have used their own momentum against them, but that would have likely caused friendly fire and left them both injured. He also knew that if he just outmaneuvered them, they'd find some excuse to ignore his power. Destroying their pride along with their swords was the only way to make them listen. Elna gives him a playful, knowing look. She saw every calculation he made. Les realizes he can't hide anything from a master like her. He laughs it off, saying he's still no match for her. Elna just grins, reminding him that she is his teacher, after all. Les can only groan as Elna aggressively ruffles his hair, completely messing up his look. She laughs heartily, clearly enjoying the role of the superior teacher, while Les stands there with his hair sticking out in every direction. Even after major victory, he realizes he still has a long way to go before he can truly stand on equal footing with his master. Back at the Albion estate, Les finally had a moment to breathe. He retreated to his room to test out his new extra-dimensional residence and see what it could do. He opened up a portal right in the middle of his room and called for Geralt to come on out. The wolf didn't hesitate and practically tackled him. Les had to tell the big guy to take it easy since the room was a bit cramped for a giant monster. Inside the subspace dimension, things were much more chill. Geralt shrunk down into a smaller form, while Les petted him and thanked him for the help. Les knew he owed a lot to his new partner. It was Geralt's wind magic that actually gave him the edge he needed to win that duel against his brothers. But he couldn't just coast on one win. If he wanted to survive in this world, he had to start thinking about the long game. A status window popped up with some bad news. He'd already hit his tame slot limit. 1 out of 1. That was a serious problem. If he couldn't tame more monsters, his growth was going to hit a brick wall. To get more slots, he needed to grind his skill level. Geralt didn't seem too worried about it, though, and just went back to sleep. In the original game, Les only ever had about 5 monsters. He gained strength from them, but if they ever got defeated, he'd be totally useless in a fight. He wasn't going to let that be his fate. He needed to raise his own base level alongside his monsters, so he could hold his own. Looking at the power rankings, he saw he was sitting at a C rank. He was stronger than his brothers, but he still had a long way to go to catch up to someone like Elna. He really wanted to get out into Arst Forest to start hunting, but he knew his family wouldn't just let him wander into a danger zone. Plus, he already had a specific monster in mind for his next tame, and he wasn't going to settle for anything less. That target was waiting for him deep within the heart of the forest. It was a monster that lived among the ruins of an old cathedral, far beyond where any normal person would ever dare to go. Back in the real world, Lest woke up after a good night's sleep leaning against his giant partner. Meanwhile, Marquis Gad was still fuming. 3 months ago, he'd written off his son as a total disgrace because of that garbage Tame skill. He'd even sent out official notices to everyone that Lest was no longer in the running to become the next head of the house. Gad wanted to look like a strong, merciless lion who wouldn't tolerate any weakness in his own family. But now Lest was out here, soloing high-rank monsters and catching the eye of the second princess. The Marquis couldn't figure out how everything had flipped on him so fast. If Lest's reputation kept rising, everyone would start thinking Gad made a massive mistake by disinheriting him. To save face, he decided he had to completely eliminate Lest's place in the family, for good. He still had his eldest son, a sword saint who was actually fit to lead the Albion name, to fall back on. Gad stood by his window, realizing he couldn't just kick Lest out now that he had the princess's favor. So, he came up with a much darker plan. He'd arrange for Lest to meet his end through his own actions. He figured a tragic accident in Arst Forest would be the perfect way to solve his problem once and for all. The next morning, Gad called Lest in and gave him an official order to investigate the Arst Forest. Lest was caught off guard, but he immediately saw the upside. This was the perfect chance to level up without any distractions. Gad kept up the act, claiming there was some unusual monster activity that needed to be checked out. He told Lest that since he'd handled a Garlwolf alone, he was the only one he could entrust with the job. Lest looked at his father, knowing full well the man knew exactly how dangerous that forest was. Gad was already picturing the B-rank monsters deep in the woods that were way stronger than anything Lest had faced before. He was already planning his cover story. He'd just tell everyone that Lest got too arrogant and died because he was reckless. Lest saw right through the fake concern, but he didn't care. He finally had official permission from the head of the house to enter the forest. When Lest accepted without hesitation, Gad was actually surprised he took the bait so easily. The Marquis started acting like a proud father again, but Lest knew his words were completely transparent. Lest didn't want to waste another second. He was ready to head out and take full advantage of this golden opportunity. The Arst Forest was split into 3 zones: the shallow, middle, and deep layers. Gad probably expected him to stick to the easiest part for a bit, but Lest knew he couldn't let his guard down for a second. As soon as they arrived, Lest summoned Geralt. It was time for their first real hunt together, and they weren't planning on playing it safe. One of the coolest side effects of the Tame skill is how it juices up the stats of both the tamer and the monster. The best part? The stronger Lest gets, the more that boost multiplies for Geralt. Honestly, it's a pretty broken setup. Lest keeps using his wooden training sword because he wants to knock monsters out and tame them rather than just ending them. If he actually needs to cut through something, he just activates a wind-cladding skill to turn that stick into a blade. He spends his days dodging and weaving through the forest, treating every attack as a chance to refine his footwork. That is, until a D-rank firebird shows up. It stays too high in the air for him to reach with his sword. Most people would be annoyed, but Lest just sees it as the perfect target for some long-range magic practice. He lines up a shot and lets a wind shot fly. It hits the bird dead center. That's when the level-up feeling starts hitting him. His body feels lighter and his mana is surging. This is exactly what he was hoping for. He finally gets that pleasant sensation of his body growing stronger. In the game, we didn't get experience just for taming a monster, so he has to actually take them down now to progress. Even better, he gets to share the experience from anything Geralt kills too. He spends the rest of the day grinding out his wind magic. By the time the sun starts going down, his growth speed is honestly getting kind of ridiculous. A full week passes, and even the powerful stray monsters in the shallow forest aren't a challenge anymore. He and Geralt have become a 2-man wrecking crew, making quick work of anything that crosses their path. Lest realizes he's hit a plateau. If he wants to keep leveling up, he needs to move into the middle layers where the real threats are. He still doesn't have official permission from Gad to go deeper, so he considers just sneaking off and doing it anyway. But he doesn't have to wait long. Gad calls him in and tells him that starting tomorrow, he's being sent even further into the forest. Les is actually pretty surprised. He figures Gad is getting impatient because he's surviving the shallow layers too easily. Gad plays it off like he just has high expectations, and Les just nods along, happy to take the new orders. The next morning, they finally head out. Now, they can explore the middle layers without having to hide from the family. The monsters here are a step up, high C ranks compared to the weaklings from before. But even these guys aren't enough to slow them down. Before long, Les has already reached B rank levels of strength. After another week of solid grinding, a new challenger finally steps out from the shadows. It's a Cyclops, a mid-B rank monster that was a massive pain to deal with back in the game. Les isn't even worried, though. He gives Geralt the signal to charge in and start the fight. He opens up with a wind shot to keep the giant off balance while he looks for an opening. Geralt lunges in, tearing into the Cyclops and giving it no room to breathe. Les follows up with a wind sever move, cutting right through the giant's tough hide like it's made of paper. The Cyclops tries to turn the tide by charging up its eye beam, a high-power attack that Les knows by heart. But instead of dodging, he decides it's time to test out a new high-tier skill called Cyclone. He catches the beam head-on, clashing his mana against the giant's attack in a massive explosion. The blast sends the Cyclops reeling. Geralt lets out a howl as the monster finally goes down for the count. That was the final push he needed. The giant collapses into a heap, and the experience points flood in. Les gives Geralt some well-deserved praise as he watches his level jump up once again. A new notification pops up. His Tame limit has increased. He can finally add a second monster to the team. He's already got his eye on a very specific target, and he's not planning on waiting for his father's permission to find it. He tells Geralt to take it easy for the night, because tomorrow they're going after the strongest opponent they've ever faced. It's the legendary dragon of this country. The very next day, they head deeper into the forest than they've ever gone before. Any B-rank monsters that try to jump them on the way are dealt with instantly. Nothing's going to slow him down now. Finally, they arrive. The place he's been looking for is right in front of them, and the real test is about to start. Les arrives at the ruins, feeling the presence he's been tracking. He is here, he says, with Geralt standing ready by his side. In the middle of the vast, quiet field stands the ancient stone ruin where the legendary beast is said to dwell. Suddenly, a massive roar rips through the air, and Les looks up to see the majestic, terrifying form of the black dragon descending. The dragon lets out an earth-shaking cry as it circles overhead, its dark scales casting a massive shadow over the grass. Looking at it up close, Les can't help but chuckle at the sheer, overwhelming pressure the creature radiates. It's incredible to think that this beast is still just a juvenile. Even in its incomplete state, its power is staggering. Right now, it's only a tenth of the size it will eventually become. Once fully grown, it would span over 100 meters in length. In the original game's story, this dragon was a tragic figure, enslaved by a demon lord's officer and forced to lay waste to the capital. It was a nightmare that even the main protagonist's party couldn't stop, a force of destruction that threatened the entire kingdom. However, after finally breaking free from its captor's control, the dragon used the last of its power to heal the world it had scarred. In its final moments, it spoke of its lineage as a divine guardian that was meant to protect people, not destroy them. It never wanted to be a weapon. After sharing its heartbreaking final words, the black dragon quietly passed away in the original timeline. That specific event was a forced loss that many players found frustrating, but the scene had always resonated deeply with Les. He had felt an emotional attachment to the dragon's tragic fate long before he ever dreamed of living in this world. That's why, the moment he realized he had been reborn as Les Albion, he knew he had to use his Tame skill to change the dragon's future. Having such a powerful ally would be amazing, but his real motivation is to save the beast from the tragic and it was destined for. He spent 4 months preparing for this day. Now, the legendary creature is finally before him, and he has the chance to rewrite its story. Dragons are the undisputed kings of mana in this world, capable of turning raw magical energy into devastating physical phenomena. In the original timeline, this dragon was force-fed mana to reach S rank, but as a juvenile, its power should currently be manageable. Les knows that with the strength he's built and Geralt's support, winning this battle is no longer an impossible dream. He gives the dragon a confident smirk, apologizing in advance for the fight they're about to have. The battle begins as the dragon prepares its first move, its massive form shifting with lethal grace. Even as a juvenile, the pressure it exerts is immense, making the very air around them feel heavy and thick with mana. With a determined shout, Les signals Geralt to begin their assault, and the two of them dive headfirst into the legendary fight.